A bit of trivia to start. Did you know that all but one of the astronauts that have walked on the moon were involved in scouting? And two of them were Eagle Scouts, Neil Armstrong being one of them. So I started in my scouting experience in first grade. In first grade, not knowing it would be my first step towards leadership experience. I worked my way up to Eagle Scout and credit my scouting experience with making me who I am today. There was a time in middle school when it wasn't so cool to be in scouting, and me and my friends who were in scouts, and I'd see in school, we used a code word for scouts. We called it racquetball. So, like, are you going to racquetball practice tonight? That was a meeting, and we'd go away to tournaments each month for a weekend for scout trips. So, but I grew out of yeah, I grew out of that. I learned to be proud of my accomplishments by high school. If I didn't wear my uniform to school or anything, but if a classmate said like, "Oh, you're in Scouts," and they thought it was helping old ladies across the street or something, I'd be like, "Have you ever been whitewater rafting, paintballing? Have you ever been wilderness survival camping in a desert?" Most of that was no, and I learned that my adventures through scouting. As a side effect, I was learning leadership skills. That helped in sports. I put these skills to use there, winning leadership awards and being team captains on both football and lacrosse. After 1 year of college, I joined the Army as a lowly private. I saw during basic training that for a lot of the new recruits, the Army was their first real experience with any kind of leadership training. The first day, they issued us these training aids that we wore along with our ID tags. You wore them 24/7. Those are the Army core values that make up down the side leadership. And you can't help but notice that a lot of those values are the same points of the Scout Law. Instilling positive traits in impressionable minds is a foundation of developing leadership. No one likes following directions or orders that they don't agree with or find morally wrong. Now, the military is obviously much more structured than typical organizations, with leadership roles being really clearly defined. There's also a lot of apathy there as well, where if you don't cause trouble and get the bare minimum done, no problem. In my experience, the proactive soldiers that can self-motivate and maybe drag some of the other troops along with them, you look impressive. To get into an actual leadership role in the Army, you've got to go away to a specialty school. And let me tell you, it's expensive. The intent is not for you to fail. So that bar is set pretty low. It was basically rehashing the soldiering skills you learned in basic, or bringing it to a level you could still teach it, or you could teach it. But we still had failures. As a disclaimer, I left the service after 9 years as a non-commissioned officer supervising privates and specialists. Leadership training for officers is a totally different animal, and the service academies, West Point and Annapolis, definitely create some of the greatest leaders in the world. The values I learned in both military and Scouts have definitely helped me mold my leadership abilities for the workforce, which is another environment which is completely different, necessitating a completely different style of leadership. I feel much more buy-in is needed from your team in the civilian world to get the best results. Telling a coworker, because that's what they told us, is not an acceptable answer in the civilian world, whereas in the military that is a regular occurrence. Folks like to know why decisions were made that way, and if possible, to feel they have some small role in that decision. And going back to those core values, displaying loyalty and respect go a long way in becoming a good leader. I believe it makes a big difference in developing leaders if you start instilling positive values in them when they're young, be it through sports, Scouts, or religious organizations. I'm not sure where you draw the line between developing good human beings versus good leaders. And especially with youth, it seems like the kids who can muster up the confidence to lead end up actually leading. That doesn't mean the confident kids are always the best leaders. If anyone's ever read Lord of the Flies, we do get some jacks in scouting too. So team dynamics change, personnel change, responsibilities change, and good leaders need to adapt. Expecting the role to adapt to your leadership style will not yield the best results. I think another key is to never totally feel trained in all aspects of leadership. This can lead to complacency and slipping into, this is the way I've always done it. I've heard speeches from 4-star generals, and part of this experience, numerous high-level state officials, including the governor and many of the directors through shadowing, and all of them had goals that they were still trying to achieve, questions they needed answered, and aware they still have a lot to learn in an ever-changing world. That's the type of leader I want to be.